Welcome everybody to Isaka Square Table of 16th of February 22. Welcome everybody. I'm very pleased that you are all here to join us. Some of the housekeeping rules before we start. As always, please mute your microphone and stop sharing your video camera if you enter the session. If you want to acquire the CPE hours, then make sure that the Teams session is having the same name, first name, last name you used for registration, otherwise we can't make the match. The presentation will be recorded and along with the slides, it might be released after the mail, after the session. And if you have questions, please use a raise hand feature or type in the chat box. I will be keeping an eye on the chat box and stop the session and ask the speaker to answer the questions. So that's how we will do it. Then our speaker today is Sahir Madar. He will introduce himself very shortly. And I will give over the session to him. So here I will stop and give it over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will share my screen. As you can see, I have a different haircut nowadays. So here we go. So to sit down and relax, today we are going to talk about the dark web. But before I start, I have this funny slide. I couldn't, not share it with you because I thought it was too funny to put it in this slideshow. It says, come a little closer. So sit down, relax, and come a little closer. This is actually an advertisement of a funeral services, and they also need customers, of course. And I will enable my laser pointer, and as you can see over here, this is a railway, and if you can closer, then they will have a new customer. This is the funny part of the presentation. So my name is Sahir Madar. I'm a security engineer and I'm a Checkpoint evangelist. I work for a cybersecurity company called Checkpoint. I work for Checkpoint for 10 years now. And before that, I was working for different other cybersecurity companies, other vendors. And I have the honor today to present to you a comprehensive tour of the dark web. And for today, I organized an agenda with 4 topics. And the first topic is a deeper look into the dark web architecture. And the second one is what is to be found on this platform. And the third one is an innovative technology, the dark web and blockchain. And at the end, I will talk about syndicates, collaboration, and execution. So 4 topics, and let's start with the first one. A deeper look into the dark web architecture. So I will start my story with Tor. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with Tor, but Tor started as a US Navy project. And Tor stands for, if you don't know it, the onion routing. And the main goal for this project was to develop an internal channel for the intelligence community in a secure way. And the project started in somewhere mid-90s, and there were 3 people who are the mastermind behind this project. And here we have them. So we have, first of all, David Goldslack. This is David Goldslack. And this is Paul Ziverson. And over here we have Michael Reed. I couldn't find actually a picture. I found a lot of pictures, but I wasn't sure which one was the actual Michael Reed. So I kept the question mark over there. In 2004, Tor was released as an open source project. It was maintained by its community. However, it also has a monetary aspect by the Electronic Foundation Frontier. And the EFF also promotes freedom of speech, and they found their way through the dark net as well. So this will definitely come back in my story later. If you want to read more about the Tor browser history, then you can go to this website, torproject.org/about/history, and there you can find the whole story about that. So let's begin at the beginning. What is Tor? Maybe some of you already know it, but Tor is your gateway to the dark web. The Tor software allows the anonymous communication, but in the past you need to be a very technical person to make it work, and therefore a Tor browser has been developed, and here you have some examples of it, and that makes it more accessible to the public. As part of the Tor installation himself, you will find a Firefox package with a proxy which is going to be configured so you can utilize the onion topology and become a hub in the total network. So over here you see an example of the Tor browsers, and over here, if I zoom in a bit, then you can actually see that it is accessing the .onion domains. On the regular web, if I can call it like that, we have known websites, and known websites, which some of us also call searchable sites, are based on engines like Google, Bing, and Yahoo, for example. And those type of web pages are called index sites. And the website owner's intention is to get the site exposed as much as possible, and which could eventually lead to a higher position up in the search results. And all the components of the web page are being indexed, the commercials, the banners, the public content, everything. But on the dark web, we have no index or whatsoever. There is no authority to manage the register process, and there are no public motive to expose your site as much as possible. Especially if you look at the domain over here, it's hard to, to remember and to index as well. So everyone can generate an onion domain in a split second. There's no one that can stop you. There's no process for it. And the goal is to encrypt the communication and protect the person behind the keyboard by not revealing his or her identity. And on the public internet, the IP matching reveals the person, and this is exactly the main motive. So once we have completed anonymously, both ends don't know that they are in direct communication. And based on the technology or logic, it should lead to an operation process when no one knows who is accessing the website, and this is exactly what we need. But in order to implement this anonymously, we use a form of, let's say, man-in-the-middle technique, or actually it is a packet moderator. And a common way to reach these kind of man-in-the-middle techniques is to implement VPNs. But with VPNs, there's always someone in between which is having the lead for both ends. But with Tor, we will use exactly 3 to establish the communication. And this will also overcome this limitation that you have with the VPN. So I will try to explain what the logic is to use 3 parties for the communication with Tor. So one party knows the initiator of the request, and the second entity knows who are staking, where the package is going through, so the destination. The key element that filters holds both, but is not so familiar with neither ends. And as you can see in this picture, the components that transfers data are built on node and hubs. So if we go first to the entry node, then we know that the original sender is familiar, but it doesn't expose the final destination. And the relay node, that simply transfers the package, so it doesn't know any of the conversation sites. And the exit nodes, this one is marked as red because there are specific requirements on the exit node. You need to have a specific installer or exit, and it needs to be monitored. But what's important is to know that the exit node actually knows everything, but we will discuss the exit node a bit later. Anyway, this process provides for the first time a real end-to-end communication. And other security measurements in the past, like SSL, were insufficient because you could do a man in the middle, and in the end you can also expose the person behind the mask, behind the keyboard. And that's actually the point where Tor can shine. So in order to establish a communication on the network, the host first needs to set a Tor circuit. And the Tor circuit is a chain of hops, 3 hops, as you have seen in my previous slide, and that will send and receive packages from the host to its destination. So let me click until I have the 3 of them. The Tor circuit is valid and permanent through the darknet session. Actually, that was in the past. Nowadays, the circuit is replaced per website session. Per every website session, a new circuit will be established. So this is the Tor circuit. Once the Tor circuit is established, the host gains full anonymity, and the host has all the public keys of all nodes based on the circuit. So over here you can see key 1, 2, and 3, and over here inside you have the package. Each sends the request with the public keys of all hops, where each node decrypts and opens one layer using its private key. So this is how it illustrates. So here you have key 3, key 2, and the exit nodes, the node sees the request in which destination website it is aiming to. So the exit node is a very interesting node. Just think about it, how valuable, how vulnerable, how powerful this node is. It actually contains all the information. But how do we access Tor? So the simplest way is to use the Tor browser. So this includes a modified Firefox version called Tor Bundle, and the browser modifications of the Firefox are more or less security driven. So as you can see over here, you just download it, you install it, and they are also available for your smartphone if you would like. And as I said before, it is a Firefox version which is more or less modified. So that means auto cancellation of JavaScript is implemented. There's no browser history. Cookies are deleted as soon as the browser is shut or closed. And there are some more additional privacy enhancement. And as you can see over here in this print screen, you can see that it avoids full screen mode to avoid identification of the browser or of the computer or any other details. We discussed previously in the previous slide the Tor topology exit node, and the exit node is the only station in the circuit that knows what it is accessing to, as you can see in this example. If the website is HTTP, it can find your cookie and everyone you send to the website. If the web is HTTPS, it can still do the man in the middle with a different certificate, or can just share an expire error message. But in order to serve as an exit node, you need to install a dedicated client and need to meet some requirements. And this type of architecture might be very interesting for specific parties, for certain parties. They might be deploying their own multiple exit nodes, and I will come to that a bit later. So this whole architecture about how Tor works creates a great point for someone who wishes to collect information and gain data about the hosts. There's no reason to track or search for criminals on the dark web. You can easily find them at the exit node. It contains all the relevant information such as IPs and what they are searching for. There's no real money. The money that there is available is the information. It is truly easy to become a host as an exit node. You simply need to install the relevant package, as I said before, and meet a few requirements. This should be very, very interesting for law enforcement parties. They have extra incentives to take over as many exit nodes as they can to just get visibility of the high traffic volumes that will pass the exit node. There's one problem. The data is fully decrypted. Well, fully decrypted. Not all the data is encrypted, but still a large part of the data is still encrypted. But even the decrypted data is considered by law enforcement as very valuable. And this information has been confirmed by documentation that has been leaked by Edward Snowden. And these slides over here are authentic slides from one of the leaked presentations about the Tor project. So that's really interesting. So this is also a very interesting story about the Government Communication Headquarters, which is an NSA parallel organization, and they hold data retention centers and actually record all the traffic going in and out of Europe. And the idea behind it is whenever there's a cyber attack, they can go back in the data and start investigating. And today they only see the HTTP and all the encrypted traffic cannot be seen. But they started a new project. They started extensive data processing management. This is how it's called. And now they can see which IP goes where. Even with Tor, they can filter out and narrow down the list based on the exit node. And they are holding all the data until the release of the quantum computers. And then they will be able to open all the encrypted data and go back and read all of it. And this is not only relevant to Tor, this could be also done on VPNs or any other encryption methods.
I have a small question from Ramzi. Ramzi, will you put your question yourself?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm audible, but the question was GCHQ is an entity of the UK, so it's not tapping the full European scope, right? It's just tapping the UK scope.
Okay, yeah, as far as I understood, it was also the full European scope.
Oh, okay.
From our research team. Does anyone know who is the guy in this picture? It's not so interactive session this, so I will just say it. It's Eric Marquez. He was in charge as #1 pedophilia content exposure. And what actually happened is that his node and Tor browser was exploited. And they emphasize him to go into a specific website where he clicked with the result of full exposure of the individual, his nickname and many other details. And they utilized the exploit to find out who is the person that manages the website. So, very interesting outcome. So, what can be found on the dark web? So this section is about the good transfer on the net and to see what kind of content is available today and what are the policies and who are the people on this platform. So if I talk about the dark web, then most of the time people would think about Silk Road, and this is a picture of Silk Road. And yeah, that would be true back in the days. Silk Road was on black market, started in 2011. It was closed in 2013 by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. And as you can see over here, they sold almost, everything. Drugs, you could buy books, computers, equipment, food even, hardware, money, instruments, and that's it. And nowadays, it's closed now, so you cannot go to Silk Road now, but there are much more content and other websites to be found on the dark web. But this is just, just to show you how it used to look like back in the days. Before we go to the darker side, let's start with some example of legitimate websites that we are more familiar with. Some vendors have their own .onion version of their site, sites like Facebook. As you see over here, this is Facebook and there's the .onion. And other social media platforms are also on there. We have other type of industries also publishing the .onion content on the website, like BBC, New York Times, and even CIA. There's no major motivation on deploying there, but it can help in the story of big data. And if you go back to the story of government communication headquarters, then it could help having the website, helping authorities to find ways to reach an individual. On the other hand, news websites that promote good investigation and freedom of speech want to have their data on the dark web, just to allow anonymous for users who actually need that. Installation and publication of a darknet website is not very complicated, especially if you already have a website on, let's say, the normal web. Then it's just in a kind of implementation of a reverse proxy. But we are here to, get a bit more understanding about the darker side of the network. There are legitimate stores, for daily consumption, starting with gift cards to ASUS cards and other items, also money transferring via Western Union or actual cash bills that will be delivered per request. And sometimes there are also discounts.
Is this type of whitewashing then? Possibility?
Yes. I will come to whitewashing, like laundering.
Yeah.
Yes, that's kind of. So in sometimes there are discounts. So for here in this example, Visa Prepaid, you will get a discount. And if you buy more, then you get, also discount, maybe more discount. So yeah, hackers do give discounts. That's also nice to know. You can also buy drugs. There are some examples of specific products, like over here, all kind of drugs. However, it's extremely difficult to track the transaction. Let me try to explain you why it's also hard for me to understand really. But within the selling, shipping, and the transaction process of the dark web, there are a few specific rules. And there's one rule that goes only about how to ship. And that's what they call the how to ship rule. And the second one is that you need to ensure the high quality of the content, and you need to limit all tracking capabilities. And there must be no linkage between the dealer and the one who's purchased. So as a result, law enforcement can only track back shipments based on logs, which is very complex and resource consuming. They don't have actual details about the entire supply chain, and they have very limited visibility. And this makes it very hard to identify relevant parties in every type of transaction. So drugs and guns, those are the top two markets by criminals. And this is another example for a marketplace and goods on the dark web. And yeah, this is a very common thing, a Glock 9mm, new and unused. And over here you have a Walther P99 9mm, new and also unused. It's just there, you can just buy it. As simple as that. And sometimes there are sad stories like this, which relates to such as a cell. This is about a guy, the German guy, 18-year-old, who killed 9 people, and he bought a gun from the dark web. So in the next slide, I have a video. There's no audio. I do have audio, but it's not coming over through Teams somehow. But in this video, where we see the law enforcement police organization in Israel, and they managed to track down a transaction process of a gun delivery. And here you can see how the gun is delivered. And what he will explain right now is actually that they were able to track down the full transaction, that they understood how much the payment was, and that they started to follow the guy who was actually, getting the package from the locker. And you will see him on his bicycle right now, getting it, and after that, yeah, the game was over for him. But still, it's very hard for law enforcement to fight against this crime. It's also possible to get almost any type of fake ID cards. As you can see over here, Dutch ID cards, then Danish, French, you can buy them. Just they're 550 euros and you have them. And they're actually good looking. You have reviews, I will come to that later. But they really look good, but there's no database. So you just buy the card and the visibility of the card is great, but there's no registration in the database, which means if you're being caught, there's no backup for the card. There's no story that you can tell. Over here at the USA citizenship, this is amazing because you can just buy an USA passport and USA citizenship, and you will get assurance. We can assure you that you won't have any problems with our papers. And you can also see that the price is much higher comparing with an, for example, a Dutch ID card. So this is very interesting because the fact that it gives an insurance could mean that it is an inside job. So there is someone, you're paying for someone inside the immigration office that's actually producing fake official citizenship documents. And this also explains the difference within the price for each type of ID or document. And the dark web is a natural place for hackers to show and sell their tools. As you can see over here, you can buy Instagram hack, $199. But you can also decide to just destroy someone's life for $899. Or you can also buy a DDoS attack starting from $99. It's important to know that this is a hacking as a service. You don't buy the exploit himself. This is not an exploit that they sell. For people around the dark web, most of the people are IT experts, so they feel comfortable to switch goods or to buy goods on these kind of websites. And we already talked about discount, and just to show you how valid and active the service is, this is one of the examples where you can get a coronavirus discount. As you can see over here, you get 15% off with COVID-19 codes. Just place it in the order message and off you go. Now I would like to share with you one of the latest hits. It's extremely creepy. It's a trend on the dark web. It is called the mystery box. Maybe you already heard of it, but I think it's really disgusting. A seller puts a box for an auction where the buyer has no idea what it contains. So the thing that you can find inside the box are too extreme, very disturbing and very hard to describe, from drugs, broken iPhones with photos, frozen internal bodies, to very bad other examples. And the trend has been developed where the purchaser of the box did a live stream and shared the box content through the live stream. And you can find those videos probably even on YouTube, but be aware it contains really extreme visuals. I have not the video, but I have some pictures over here. This is the box, and over here you can see a knife with blood, for example. You can see a broken smartphone with creepy photos. So this is just to give you an impression. So we saw a few of the available marketplaces and the products that they sell. But the question is it so easy to communicate and purchase whatever you want and when you want? And the answer on that, it's not so straightforward. It's not an easy answer. In the dark web, the rules are quite different. So those rules are key to success in order to help both sides, the seller and buyer, to stay anonymous. And even more important, to use the review as an indicator for trust, the trust level of the resource. So core business, seek feedback and position it it is very valuable feedback to expand the amount of transactions too. So the better the feedback is, the more transactions the seller will get. So unlike the indexed internet where you have the Google review or any other kind of review pages, the reviews on the dark web are very valuable, and they are all true. Actually, that's what I heard. I'm not there every day, and this is actually something that you will not see on any other web, that people really use it so much and use it to make decision if you want to buy it or not. For example, in this picture, you see that a seller showcases goods and the valuable feedback and ranking based on previous transactions. So these are the products. And over here you can see he's having an overall ranking of 9.5 and 10 for the products, shopping and communication, all high numbers. So in the upcoming 3 slides, we close this second chapter of the presentation, and I will talk about the type of people who can be found here. So questions that I get is like, is the dark web for criminals only? And what is the type of population on the dark web? And the answer on that is actually everyone can be on the dark web. Really, everyone, from criminal to hacker or curious children, me, you, we can there, everyone can be there. Legal parties are around there also, and law enforcement of course as well. So let's have a look on some of the professions that will definitely be around here as part of their daily life. Of course, we got the media researchers and journalists. They communicate with individuals from restricted areas or just find new scope for a trusted covered resource. Then we have legal departments and law enforcement. Even bankers and analysts from financial sectors are on the dark web. So, as I said before, everyone can be there. And this is an example for a journalist on the dark net, on the dark web. It's Jamie Bartlett, and he exposed his conflict and data collection in the book. And his book is called Inside the Dark, Inside the Digital Underworld, and the title is over here. You cannot see it so good with the colors. And Jamie was the Telegram and the Spectator reporter, and his book described all underground activities he has observed on the dark net, as well as the conflicts of which a journalist might face when he's using a scope for uncovered resources on the net. So very interesting to read. In this section, we discussed the evaluation of digital money in the darknet. Why is it important, and how did it boost the embracement and deployment of blockchain technology, as well as the hunt after cryptocurrency? And then I mean, of course, Bitcoin and Monero. The key concept of the darknet must be applicable for its financial aspect. All transactions are being executed when parties involved reserve their anonymity. So this is the main driver for it. So the original form of physical payment was web money. You can see it over here. This is how it used to look like back in the days. You can top up, you can pay, you withdraw, you can get a loan for your business, you can accept payments, you can make payments, you can do your budget management, and etc. So web money was started in 1998 in Russia, and web money is an e-wallet, actually. That's basically it, which can make online payments. And that was the key vehicle for goods transfer. So this is how it started until it was closed. It was shut down, and the community started to look into something new that could easily replace it. And that thing was closer than they actually expected, and it was the Bitcoin. It was the gold array of the dark net and the ideal format for criminals to keep their anonymity. So Actually, not everything is perfect with Bitcoins. One of its downside is the fact that it exposes the private wallet string at the time that you are doing a transfer. And with the help of complex calculations and advanced matching technique, someone could at some point associate a transaction to a specific wallet and person, which could eventually lead to, loss of anonymity. So the second obstacle that you might face with Bitcoin is how can you transfer it from the digital into a physical. That part you have a local Bitcoin exchange, which you can use to get paid in person or via bank transfer or online payment or even have the cash posted to you. And this is really, as said before by someone in the group, money laundering from digital goods to physical currency. So there's a process after. There's also another option. This is a more different method to keep anonymity. It's a bit mixing service. This is an aggregator to take multiple coins and take the request of people who wants to do the transaction and share it bit by bit to their own wallet. So this is a different approach. As I already showed you, there's a gap with Bitcoin. If you are talking about anonymity, there's a gap with Bitcoins, and it actually showed, the community that it is insufficient, an insufficient payment method actually. And this is the moment where a new cryptocurrency was raised, which is called Monero, and it actually changed the game. And Monero actually managed to deliver a full privacy and decentralized fungible currency, offering that other currency, including Bitcoin, falls short. And the idea behind this coin is to implement blockchain, so there's no reason to assign the sender address. So you can now send money, you know where the money is going, but there's no record of the transaction. And this is today the go-to market for, the syndicates in the dark web. In the last chapter of the presentation includes a case study of specific syndicates. But before I'm going there, I just want to, to show you this slide from May's team official press release in March 18, 2020, where they say we also stop all activities versus all kinds of medical organization until the stabilization of the situation with virus. So the hacker shows they have a good heart and goodwill, not doing attacks on health institutions until the full stabilization of the virus situation. This is just what I want to, to show you. I thought it was funny. So what do you think that the life of a hacker is like? The operation is not a one-man show. It's not like 15 years ago when I started to sell and advise people to buy IPS solutions because there were people outside which were called hackers or script kiddies just to do a show off to other people how they can get into a network. No, nowadays it's a full operation life cycle. It includes CEOs, it includes Q&A, quality assurance, it includes automation processing, and there's no room for a mistake. A mistake might equal time in jail. So it is a company, and here's an example of a hacking organization, and maybe one of you already recognized by the names which Russian hacking group this was. But this Russian hacking group were creating banking Trojans, and they would make DDoS on bank platforms and would see during the attack, the DDoS attack, that the time to approve of transaction was easier. So during those attacks, they sent more transactions to the bank for approvals. It was an easy money making. But the operation himself to execute was pretty hard. They had a client side, they had the server side, they had research guys, DevOps, there was a financial department where they can move the money to, so it was more complex. And I have a picture of that, how it could look like. This is the darknet food chain. With the kingpin, you see some managers, etc. And over here we have the victim. And the victim contains all the valuable information, the money, the credentials that you can sell, maybe other content that you can sell, maybe you can play some bot, or maybe you can take his computer or some hostage, whatever. But let's start with the kingpin. The kingpin is the leader. You can see him as the cyber Pablo Escobar. He's a very powerful criminal. He's well connected upside down in the crime scene, and you just don't want to mess with him. He is having deep connections on the traditional criminal world, but well connected to the cyber malicious actors. He's self-driven, but also driven by anonymous criminal groups. And then we have the technical manager. The technical manager is almost as important as the kingpin. He's responsible for the malware authors. He's taking care of exploit kit developers, phishing kit developers, hacking tool developers, and they are using most of the time external malicious services to avoid personal detection. And he's also responsible for the serial exploits, weaponizing newly published exploits, allowing malware authors to evade AV signatures, selling it as a standalone exploit, and etc. I just want to take a brief moment to talk about the evade AV signatures for this part. So normally when you or when we are having a malicious code and we play a bit with it and we upload it against VirusTotal, for example, just to benchmark if it's being recognized, which AV engine is recognizing it, and etc. Then the VirusTotal will anyway always take a hash of the file and keep it. So the AV scanning services that they are using are having almost all of the engines connecting to all of their clouds and signature databases. But what they do is once they are testing their codes, their malicious codes against the AV scanning services, they make sure that it doesn't share their hashes. So it keeps a 0-day if it's a 0-day exploit. So it is a big organization. It is a professional organization. So we talked about the technical manager, but there's also an operational manager. There are brokers, product needs to be sold. There are operation managers taking care of the operations and making sure that the victim is going to be infected. Then we have the mules. We have a money operation. Money needs to come in. This is the way how it works. It's a very professional setup. So this is an example of an authentic conversation from someone in the RIG group. So this is about the Loki showcase. Okay. So the ransomware was spread via spam or an exploit kit. And it is important to mention that the ransomware needs to go through a constant evaluation in order to bypass AV engines. So that was the few slides back where I was explaining about the AV engine. So that's a constant process of the hacker. And the success of it is based on the number of computers that get infected. And this is their business model. And this is the way how they earn money. And over here you can see what they actually get on the screen once they are infected. You can see that the information is encrypted. You can see how you can get back, how you can get access to information. So you need to install the Tor browser, you need to browse to the address, you need to follow the instructions, and then you need to identify yourself. And of course you need to pay, and after your payment then you will get the keys to get access to your data. So the second part is the server. Now with this example I'm trying to let you understand that the server side is as well as important. It's extremely critical because the ransomware operators and the victim needs to submit the transaction communication via the server side. So that's why it's so important. So this demonstrates the entire attack chain and the organization units. So over here, so we have the coder. They are coding the exploit. Then we have IT services. They are responsible for all IT operations. Then we have the Q&A, quality assurance. Then we got DevOps or IT and automation. And then we have, of course, finance. Money needs to come in. So in the log example, we see that it is requesting for a Bitcoin. And the big question was, for me at least, the question that I had, why is it not monetary? And this is mainly due to the complexity. It is for people much easier to get a Bitcoin since there are a lot of Bitcoins. And because there are a lot of Bitcoins, it is much easier to switch to monetary. So yes, it is a wonder if you made your way out. I can imagine, but we did. But I'm always at the end, so that is good. But before I finish my presentation, I just want to give you a few tips on how you can safely browse on the dark web. So first of all, disable all JavaScript auto updates. You need to avoid any execution of potential exploit. So disable it and make sure that it stays disabled even after updates. Don't use your machine like that. Use a virtual machine and use a strong alias which is not related to anything you have used before on the regular web. Just be sure that you never used it before, and try to get familiar with the darknet jargon to be able to communicate with our others. As you have seen in the print screens, they are chit-chatting a bit in a different way. I have 50 minutes left, but this was actually my full presentations. I don't know if there's any question.
On the chat, there are no questions at the moment, but I'm asking for questions as well. Anybody questions for? Yes, Ramzi, you can just put your question yourself.
Yep. The question is like, how many, you were speaking about from a personal angle a little bit, and then you gave Loki, which has, let's say, commercial angle to it. But how many organized crime syndicates are there? Is there like any statistics? And also, how easy is to monitor the data for a commercial entity that is being leaked on the darknet?
Yeah. So Ramsey, first of all, it's great to hear your voice. And secondly, I can answer that, but I don't have the details in front of me. But I can only answer it from a perspective from the Checkpoint research team, which is limited to our own, threat intelligence. But I can definitely contact you offline to share those details that we have from our own perspective.
Yep, thank you.
I'll make a note of it. And especially, we have seen a huge growth, of course, due to, for example, Log4j, and also during, in December when you have Christmas and etc. Then you see all kind of activities going on So it's definitely interesting, Ramsey. I will definitely share it with you.
Yep, thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Ramsey, for a question. Other questions?
Question, Peter here. Now there's a lot of tension between Russia, Ukraine, and also United States of America. The hackers want to have their money to be paid mainly in bitcoins. But what we see, the value of Bitcoin has decreased the last month. And what you see now with the crisis, that Bitcoin is still decreasing. Yeah? We thought it's going up, but it doesn't go up. My main question is, such tensions there are now, does that impact the activities?
No, we don't see that it is impacting the activities in a positive way for. No, we don't see. So the Bitcoin is a very easy way for them to let people pay, comparing with other currency because it's so accessible and easy to get for everyone. But because of the drop of the value of the currency, we don't see any drops in the amount of hacking attempts. Actually, we see that old malware are re-entering again, are getting redeveloped, or old botnets are starting to get alive again.
Okay, thank you.
So no info. I still have another question. For companies, it's important also to check on the dark web to see if personal data is being published there. What is your advice, not being a criminal, to enter the dark web to see what's going on?
If you're going to do it on your own, then it's going to be a very hard job because the dark web is super dynamic, and you never know on which page you are and where you need to start search. There are companies out there who are having a professional solution for this, where you can provide all the details of your company, including your domain names and etc. And then they can proactively do a search and come back with an official report. It's really hard to do it, manually. But this is actually a very good point, because it does happen that on the dark web people are doing trades or abusing companies' identities, or doing trades on the company identities. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Thank you, Peter, for your questions. I see 2 questions from Jolanda Schakel. Are you willing to word them yourself, Jolanda? Just unmute.
Yeah. If you hear me, I do.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing which was interesting on dark web, now I've been reading about it like a lot, but I also know right now there's political organizations and cyber, with cyber techs working. I'm just wondering, do you see governmental cyber warfare also on the dark web, or is that somewhere else?
Yeah, that's a presentation on himself. But what so cyber warfare, it always starts somewhere, and it might start, for example, with the vulnerability. But what we see on the dark web is that governmental institutions are one of the bigger bidders on the level of exploits and vulnerabilities. So yes, they are active. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the other question I had is, what is the type of cyber activities we should be most concerned about from a company perspective? Because we only see it maybe after something has been sold on the dark web. I'm just interested, where should we be concerned given the developments over time? Because I think a few years ago, I think it was Carter's Planet and the Visa card printing of the cards, but now it's quite a different game. I'm just wondering, what would you be most concerned of if you were in our shoes?
So that's a good question. So what we see right now is that the impact of cybercrime organizations are hitting companies harder because of two reasons. Reason number one is that nowadays they don't hostage a computer and ask for money. No, they take over the full company. So they take over all the cloud data and everything. So the impact of a hacker is much bigger. So and they are more organized, as you have seen in my slides also. So my concern would be it would be for to get control on all the assets in your network that you are not having control of right now. For example, you're working now from home, you're not behind your secured gateway. How are you sure that your computer or your smartphone is not going to be a hop or a node of a hacker to get further into your organization? So you need to extend your security more towards your endpoint to make sure that you're not going to be infected or being a part of a big ransomware activity.
Okay, thank you. There's also a question from Stephen Matua. Stephen, you unmute yourself and
Sure, thank you. So, Sadir, first of all, thank you for the presentation. My question is about the ratio of index pages which can be found via Google and other search engines versus the number of dark web pages. Do you have like a ballpark estimate in terms of what the ratio would look like?
No, I have no details on that, unfortunately. No, there's no information about it available because what we have seen is that everyone can just start that onion domain right now, every second of the day, like on the normal web. But on the dark web also, big communities are getting shut down very fast. And the biggest problem is there's no registration at all. So no one is counting.
Right. Thank you, Sadir.
No problem.
Well, if somebody has a last question, Ramzi, your last question, and then I think we are at the end of our presentation.
I'm going to make it a quick one. First of all, say thank you so much for the great presentation. I have a question related to Web 3.0, or what a lot of us know as more from the meta side, the metaverse and the NFTs and all the ecosystem that's evolving. And it seems to me like this ecosystem is somehow, because of the cryptocurrencies, kind of interconnected with the dark web. Maybe in a global idea, if you can give us a glimpse of what do you think about that?
I'm not getting your question.
The idea is cryptocurrencies are used on the dark web and are also used now on not so dark web, as we can call it, which is the metaverse and the NFT community, which relies on the same, let's say, currency. So how do you feel this relationship in the future is going to intermix?
Yeah, I think I don't see any. I don't believe that cryptocurrency is only relevant on the dark web. I think blockchain himself should be and could be available for also the regular web and accessible for everyone. The only problem, I guess, would be the amount of compute power and etc. that it needs to have to keep it alive. So the physical part, but further than that, I don't see any. But that's my personal opinion, I don't see any issue why it wouldn't be possible. No.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think that I'm looking at the time. It's a nice point to put an end to our nice evening. Thanks again for your presentation. I see a lot of positive reactions, a lot of thanks. So also
Thank you very
from
much.
our organization, it was very happy to have you here. And for everybody, see you next time.
Yeah.